Here is a leader model LCT-193D cassette checker. This is a really interesting piece of test equipment that is all about adjusting and aligning cassette decks, hence the name. This is quite hard to find. There is this, and then there is a version that is branded as Pioneer. It's the Pioneer LCT-193 cassette checker. And my request straight away is, if you have any information on this, a user manual or, and that's what I'm looking for the most, a service manual with schematics, please get in contact. Please write in the comments below, because I would really need a schematic and a service manual. Now, I did get the unit mostly working, which was a bit of a journey. I got this off eBay, and the first strange thing is the case does have a battery compartment, but in the battery compartment there is nothing inside. There aren't any battery contacts. There is nothing. I don't know if this was a modification that somebody did, or if Leda decided to get rid of the battery compartment for some reason, but that's a bit strange. So the only way to power this is the barrel connector for external power. The seller included a wall wart type power supply. This one, terrible choice because it is a switch mode power supply that might cause some problems when used with a piece of old analog test equipment due to the high frequencies used inside the switch mode power supply. Well, so that kind of made me suspicious. So thankfully I checked, and it turns out this power supply, you can see it right there, center positive. Now, you look at the side of this, and you see center negative. Oh dear. Now, on the eBay photo, you could clearly see that the seller had used this power supply to power the unit. And it did turn on, and it did seem to work. So that brought up the question, is this label on the side really true, or did somebody rewire the connector to accept a center positive power supply? Now, I was able to trace down an LM7912 negative voltage regulator inside, and using the known pinout of that, I could determine which one was the ground. But this is where you have to be careful. Since it's a negative voltage regulator, the ground is actually more positive than the output voltage. So it's it's a bit of a thing, requires some logic, which yeah. Anyway, so I was finally able to figure out that nobody had modified the external power connector. So I was able to plug in one of my power supplies, center negative. And, well, the next problem was the operating voltage, but that's an easy one to solve. Now, the seller had included this power supply for 15 volts, but if it has the wrong polarity, then it might just as well also have the wrong voltage. But no problem, because this does have a battery test position for the not quite existing battery compartment. And that way I was able to find out. See, my power supply puts out only 12 volts because that's all I had handy. But it goes into the green when the operating voltage is 18 volts. So I'll have to find myself an 18 volt center negative power supply. So that problem was solved. So I started testing the unit, and I'm not going to go into any detail on what this can do. It can do a lot, and I will demonstrate that, but I will be demonstrating it using an actual cassette deck, and we will align an actual cassette deck using this cassette checker. But I was going through the functions right here, and see, one of the things that it can do is measure the speed of the cassette deck using a test tape or test cassette with a tone. But then see, it has a zero adjust position, and I went over to that. I have to also bring it over to measure that power switch up there. Interesting thing is this battery test position, the unit already seems to be running in the battery test position. You put it onto battery test, and you do get an output signal from the oscillator. So that's interesting. But anyway, so yeah, if I now switch to speed measurement, no input signal, so it's 0. So I put it, when I first tested this, I put it into the 0 adjust position, and no matter where I turned the speed 0 adjust up there, the meter was pegged all the way up. So that was the next problem that I needed to figure out. I connected a frequency generator to the input, and I was able to determine that the meter in the speed test position would be at 0 at a frequency of 3 kilohertz, 3000 hertz. Now in 0 test it was pegged, so obviously the 0 adjust was designed for a higher frequency. So I said, okay, somebody must have messed with an internal adjustment, and without a schematic, all I could do was use the continuity checker on the multimeter, and I was actually able to trace continuity from this speed 0 adjust to a, well, I guess you could say a course adjust that's inside the unit on the board. There are a few adjustments on here, and that is labeled as V6. So I went to turn V6, and yeah, that's when a little accident happened, and I turned V9. Oh dear. So I then went on and turned V6, and I was able to get the meter to work, get the 0 adjust to work, and it turns out this unit is actually designed to do the speed test with a frequency of 3150 hertz. So 3.15 kilohertz, which is apparently the European standard for speed tests for some reason. And, well, clearly somebody just had a 3 kilohertz test tone tape that he wanted to use, so he modified this accordingly. But anyway, so that has been fixed, but of course the question that now remains is the V9 potentiometer or trimmer adjustment inside. I tried to figure out what it does. I was not able to do that, so it's now just set into the center position, and I'm hoping that that is not causing some horrible inaccuracy somewhere. It probably does, but I would definitely like to have the service manual to figure out what does that adjustment do and how do I fix it? How do I align it properly? Because, well, it's now in the center position and I don't think that's correct. But that's it for right now. That's the first look at the Leader LCT-193D cassette checker, and as I said, we will be doing a much more detailed video on this and a detailed demonstration on this in the future. But until then, thanks for watching. Once again, if you can help, please comment down below